Health and happiness, everyone. Welcome to the Strength and Motion Show, and online experience curated specifically for the members and fans of Strength and Motion Academy. If you haven't heard of our space before, we are a 24/7 gym in Midvale, Western Australia, and our goal is to provide a space where people can build a strong and mobile body using a functional and holistic health approach to training and life. If this is your first time listening to the show, then thank you for tuning in, and we strongly encourage you to get stuck into our first 5 episodes. These first 5 are a complete deep dive into # the holistic way, which is our 4-pillar approach to achieving health and fitness mastery. As experienced health and fitness coaches ourselves, we have identified movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress as the 4 key areas to always prioritize in order to live healthy and happy. You can do so by simply scrolling to the beginning of the episode list or search the Strength and Motion Show on YouTube and Facebook. Today, we are talking about functional mobility. Woohoo! Functional mobility. This is one of those things that everyone needs, but they don't really know it, or they just don't prioritize it. It's crazy how we underestimate so many things in our lives, so many simple things in our lives. Things like sunshine, quality sleep, fresh water, good food are a really good, things like sunshine, quality sleep, fresh water, good food go a really long way in setting our health and fitness standards. Thanks, Josh. Good correction there. Functional mobility is another one of those things. It's a foundational component of our health that is skipped by most. Simply put, functional mobility is practical mobility. It's the ability for the body to thrive within daily life and its chosen applications. Chosen applications are things like hobbies, jobs, sport, leisure, and pleasure. Functional mobility extends beyond stretching, yoga, and Pilates. It also includes the body's strength to be stable and have good posture. It includes the body's ability to move with force and energy, such as graceful dancing or agile movement on the field or court. Most importantly, it encompasses the body's ability to relax. A body that cannot relax will always recover slower and, unfortunately, die faster. The human body cannot thrive without easeful movement and cannot relax if it does not feel safe. The body feels safe when it becomes more mobile, self-aware, coordinated, and stable. So before we delve deeper into functional mobility, let's bring Nav onto the show.
Wait. Woohoo, here we are.
Yeah, Navar.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Co-host, Navar.
Yes.
What's new in the world of Nav? What's the goss?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the 9-day NLP course that I just did. So,
yes.
Yeah, NLP being neuro, the nervous system,
Yep.
and neurology, the brain.
Yep. L stands for legs.
Yes, the legs for the brain.
Yes.
L stands for linguistic. So the communication, the words, and how we perceive things and see things. Mm-hmm. And then programming is what is our programming around what is our nervous system's programming physiologically, and also our program of our words and what we see and the strategies that we hold and the values that we hold and the roles that we play within ourselves, the parts of ourselves and what have you. So, and how to use language and how to use programming or strategies to then create more possibility and resourcefulness within your neurology, your nervous system and your brain, your mindset to be able to go out there and kick some ass and do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you
live the life
tick.
you want.
Live
your chosen application.
Exactly. So that's and I've been diving deep into Anthony Robbins because there's a lot of like NLP. Anthony Robbins does NLP.
Yeah, he was like the OG NLP man. Well,
the one that made it like big,
made it popular.
Yeah,
he popularized it.
He's like the biggest life coach, like performance coach in the world, right? Ever had to being alive. Besides like maybe like Socrates or philosophers.
Yeah, but they weren't even life coaches. They were just thought leaders.
Exactly.
When Tony Robbins, he's actually in the trenches.
He's like the modern sort of like...
He's in the
applicable...
The Bahama trenches on his island.
Well, he's never really home, hey? He's always traveling, doing UPW and stuff, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, in his private jet.
Yeah.
He deserves it.
Oh, yeah.
He literally earned it, so.
Yeah. He's earned many private jets.
And I respect it. Tony Robbins is the man.
Yeah, he's done well for himself and the world. He's helped a lot of people.
If you haven't heard of Tony Robbins, you have now.
Mm.
Good man. You should have heard Tony Robbins by now.
I think most people have.
I think most people listening to this show would... Or actually, if they're a new member or a new client or new to the concept of like holistic health and fitness, then maybe not. But I think because we've actually quoted him a fair bit in the last. So if you haven't listened to the first 5 episodes, listeners, get onto it because Tony Robbins being quoted in there a few times.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, Google Tony Robbins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So thank you for telling us about the latest with Nav. Also, the SMA team has had the privilege of getting free counselling from Nav.
Yeah, I can't help it now.
Whether they know it or not. It's all happening. So
yeah. What about yourself? Quickly, how's your life? What's happening in your life?
Yeah. We're talking about chaos a little bit, and I'm like letting chaos back into my life a little bit more, and it's a bit chaotic, but it's somehow nourishing to be letting more chaos into my life. I don't encourage it for everyone because most people need less chaos in their lives, but just for where I'm at the moment and what I'm doing, it's I don't know if it's working, but I feel happier. So
that's a shitty telltale.
Yeah.
He wants to feel happier.
Yeah. But there, no word of a lie. There's a lot of my internal dialogue's quite intense and has been for a while because as you know, as we mentioned during my free counselling session / boss meeting, we had we discussed like what would an 80-year-old self do, and my 80-year-old self's like, Josh, chill the fuck out, just enjoy it, like enjoy this period, just take this time.
Yeah.
Whereas my me right now is like, let's fucking go, and so the internal dialogue between both of those voices are quite strong still, and so the chaos is allowing me to feel better, but I'm still navigating those senses of guilt, the habitual like must do more. That's still quite a challenge. And on another note, I have a very small amount of heartburn right now because I officially broke. I was never counting the streak, but I went and got fast food on the way here.
Oh.
Yeah. So I had my.
What did you get?
I got Red Rooster.
Oh,
okay. Flavor wrap. But,
the OG.
Yeah, but you know, for the listeners, I actually haven't had fast food for about somewhere between 5 and 6 years. Haven't really bothered. I don't eat shit food like that anymore. But today I was like, do you know what? I just wanted to get some calories in. I was like, I was in the mood. I was in the chaotic mood, and I was like, fuck it, let's go get some Red Rooster. So I got a flavor wrap and some hot chips, or whatever you call the chips that come out and come with things.
Yeah.
I got an apple juice. I got me an apple juice. But they're like, I'm literally that same dialogue is like, oh, you broke your streak, and the other part is like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Like I just ate a wrap. So But last I did actually go to Red Rooster once at like 3 a.m. because I was driving down to Bustleton to get to an event, and I was like, I need to get some calories in, but I ordered like a quarter chicken or a half chicken, so I just ate like half a roast chicken. So I don't count that, but that did happen about 12 months ago for me to go on that little trip. But this time, like, I could have got a quarter chicken, but I was like, give me a fucking wrap. Like, get some fucking chips, gluten in there, and it had a slice of cheese in there.
Souffle off all the calories from the ice bath.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So I'm not like through the moon about it, but I am pleased with my decision. I made the right choice. I chose food. I chose calories over just like not eating for the next like 2 hours. You know?
Yeah. I chose not eating. I haven't eaten.
And I decided to suckle my apple juice like this, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that probably sounds disgusting on the mic, but anyway, I don't normally drink like that. I just felt like suckling on my juice today. So functional mobility. Let's get clear. A lot of people don't even know what functional mobility is, do they, Nav?
No, but I think also mobility and functional, they have different linguistic meaning to many people.
Well, I don't know why I must have forgotten to write this in here, but I did actually have the intention to start the discussion off with, why do you believe functional mobility and just mobility for that matter, why do you believe it's not as popular? Why do you believe it's so neglected?
I think it's more so what is popular at the moment, right? So, and a lot of people tend to follow what is popular because it's easier. It's easier to follow what's popular. It's hard to separate from what the craze is or what's popular. And we see that, to me, it's quite clear because we see that happen with society. We go through cycles and waves where we go with what's popular and everyone follows the wave. And I think the fitness industry is very heavy in that a specific sort of wave with influence or aesthetics or looking a certain way or train a certain way and being strong in certain movements because that's what's attractive also on social media. And certainly a lot of people our age are influenced by that space.
Yes.
And then the people that are teaching and coaching tend to be our age and they're within that sort of space. So I just don't think functional mobility is being explored enough because it's not cool enough.
Yeah.
I think it's not cool enough and
everyone wants to be huge. Well, sorry, not huge, but all the guys want to be jacked, all the girls want to be fucking
big booties.
Big booties.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the society that we're in now. Like that's what's most popular, and then a lot of the time, what's different does come into confliction with the beliefs and the actions of the other space. And so if this is popular, people don't want to be not popular, right? People want to be popular. And so for them to separate from what's popular and to move into something new or something innovative or creative, I can't remember. Nowadays said it was like the first person's really, really crazy. Like the first person to make a change or think of something is a madman. Yeah. But then once more people catch on, you're in the middle and you're like, okay, you're following the craze. You're following the path and you're just normal there. But then if you wait too long, you're the idiot. So you're either crazy or the normie or the idiot. You know what I mean? I think functional mobility and what we teach, we're somewhat on the crazier side. Yeah. You know, we're somewhat newer in the space, and we're going against the norm.
Against the grain, yeah. I relate to that. It's, I don't know, I forget what the guy's name is. I think his name's Amir. He's on social media, mostly Instagram, I believe. He's most popular as Beard the Best You Can Be. And he's an FRC guy. And basically, he's like the most popular FRC guy. And probably the least popular FRC is the guy that started it. Because the guy with the beard, he does all the cool shit on his social media, and he literally says all the time, he goes, the reason I'm popular is because the memes that I make are funny, the videos I make are funny, and he goes, everything that you see that I do, and he's doing like his super controlled sissy squats, he's doing box jumps on his pronated ankles and stuff, just to prove a point. Is like, normally people break their ankles doing this, but I'm just doing this for reps. And everyone's like, fuck yeah. And he's just like, I don't train like this. I don't do any of this in my training.
This is just entertainment.
My training is the same things that you all do. I just do it more consistently and more intentfully than you do, and that's why I can perform this way. So I'm really fascinated by this concept because you know, like there's not just us in the fitness space. There's a lot of people and businesses and entrepreneurs in their own industries just trying to figure out how do you popularize the right thing, because usually the wrong things are the cool things, you know. And so
you got to play the game a little. You got to understand where society is at, marketing, communication.
Which is a forever thing, because like if you look at like entertainment and partying and alcohol and sugar, sugar sells quicker. Convenience, I got fast food, even I fell into it. You know, I fucking hate fast food and I still got it. So. Cool. All right. Well, let's get clear on what is functional mobility, because many of the listeners might not even be clear yet. So, what is functional mobility and why is it important? Functional mobility, listeners, it's an umbrella term. It encompasses the spectrum from flexibility through to strength. So if you think about the human body, the body can be bendy, but then it can also be strong and rigid. And so functional mobility is actually covering that whole spectrum. Whereas if you think that your flexibility is just a section, is one end of that. And so we usually think, when we think about mobility, most people tend to associate things like stretching as a part of mobility, which it is, but stretching is more about loosening the body. Whereas, as I explained in our mobility class that we run at the gym before we start, is that people are confused. They're like, why are there weights here? Why are there weights in this class when we're doing a mobility class? And then I explain that the body accumulates tension by having short muscles, and we stretch them to help get them longer. But muscles will also contract neurologically. So I can just tense my muscles now. Or if you've had an injury, let's say you've like injured your shoulder, your whole shoulder starts to get stiffer, and that's the body contracting those muscles in those regions to help protect that area. And so when you return back to normal movement and your shoulder's healed, but that pattern of tension still exists. And so we accumulate tension all the time. And the way to help alleviate that tension is teach the body to be long and strong, or strong whilst long. And so you get into these stretched positions and you start adding weights to it. And we're teaching stability and strength within the mobility umbrella as well. And so that way you're working the nervous system, the neurological aspect of mobility, but also just the general mechanical aspect of just tight muscles as well. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this elaborated spectrum of movement styles, so to speak, which allow ourselves to be more mobile and more healthier, and therefore stronger as well, or whatever our goals are. So that's what we're talking about. It is the area of physical health that defines how we move and how we hold ourselves. Functional mobility affects how we sit, stand, bend, move, run, and jump, amongst other things, right? So again, people think that stretching excuse me, stretching and flexibility and sometimes foam rolling is mostly what comes under the umbrella of mobility, which is still a foundational step, but we do want to take that a little bit further and then again bring the strength aspect into it. And so what I mean by the strength aspect is understanding the difference between passive mobility and active mobility. And so passive mobility, Nav, can you give me like an example of what passive mobility might look like?
I always use the splits as an example.
Cool.
So if you're going to the splits where, what would you call it? Like your legs are far apart from each other to the side.
You were going side splits.
Side splits, yeah.
Side splits.
So side splits, yeah. I was running front side. I can't remember. So the side splits, legs are separating away from each other to the sides of the body, and you're trying to open up the inner groin area, right? Your adductors, technically. What makes it passive is if you're holding that position, you're being forced downwards by gravity. You're not actively pulling your abductors or pulling your hip away from the body with muscle, so it's passive.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah. So with my clients, I basically do a test, a passive versus an active test. So let's pretend that we're testing hamstring flexibility, which is the back of the thigh, if you're wondering. So imagine you're just going to lay someone on their back. They're just laying in that Tin Man position, and you're going to grab that person and you're going to lift their leg up. And basically that straight leg's going to go straight up like they're kind of kicking something, but then that leg will obviously hit a limit and it doesn't go any further. And so what I'll do is I'll lift their leg up. So they just completely relax, and I'll lift their leg up so they're basically their foot's pointing in the air, or basically their leg doesn't go any further. And then I say, this is where the leg lands. And then I put the leg back down, and then I'll say, now you do the same thing without me touching you. And then they have to try and deliberately lift their leg up themselves.
Which is always much less than the passive.
It's always much less. And that's how you kind of test the passive versus active gap. And so passive mobility is the body's softness and how it can just kind of fall into any position. But active mobility is how can someone move themselves intentionally into that position. And so dancers are very good, and gymnasts, they're good examples of active mobility, where like I think of like a ballet dancer where they do that movement where they will like they'll go up on their toes, but then like one leg points to the air, and then one foot's on the ground still, one leg's on the air, and they're either like
insane.
Or that same like taekwondo fighters and stuff,
like a high side kick or something.
And they can just stand there on one leg, but their legs in the air,
like Bruce Lee kicking the roof or something.
Those I want you to visualize those, listeners, to understand like that's what we're talking about. Active mobility is the active is like, does the body have the strength to put itself in that position rather than just the range? And so when we start talking later in the podcast about how we're how do you train the body and how do you improve mobility, it's actually more around active mobility rather than passive mobility. And that's a side goal of this podcast, is to really take your awareness onto what mobility really is and how to create sustainable change within your body rather than just stretching. And some people love stretching, but probably most people don't. Most people don't. Yoga classes are great as well, but like just sitting down on a mat and stretching by yourself, a lot of people find that quite boring, including myself. And I like that. Ever since active mobility has come into my life, I am like converted.
People love the word. People like to be active.
People love to be active.
With meditation.
No one wants to be passive.
Although in some ways that we need to like just let go and surrender. And so like I trick people, be like, oh, well, meditation isn't you not doing something.
Yes.
You're actively doing meditation. And then they go like, oh, wow, I'm doing something. And they'll sit there for half an hour because I think they're sitting there, like they're doing the act.
Absolutely.
Then eventually they learn how to not do.
How to not do. There we go. So that's passive mobility and active mobility. And that's something we want you to really like remember this. This is a really core component of understanding that. Is the difference between passive mobility and active mobility. Passive mobility is just, do you have the range? Active mobility is, do you have the control to put yourself into that? Let's talk about proprioception and coordination. Nav, do you want to just break down what the word proprioception means to the people?
It's technically our ability to like identify and feel and control a part of our body. So like if you were to balance through on one leg on the floor, it's your ability to connect to the ankle or to the limb that's holding you upright. So it's the perception, the connection to your body.
That's it. That's exactly right. Yeah. It's I don't know if I wouldn't say medical, but for like a simpler term, it's the medical version of self-awareness. Is that a good way to say it?
Makes sense. Physiological self-awareness.
Yeah, it's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, obviously it does have a really beneficial ripple effect into self-awareness of the mind, self-awareness of the emotion, but we're specifically talking about self-awareness of the body. And so people that are unbalanced or clumsy, they have low proprioception. When a limb goes numb, I was thinking of two inappropriate examples of when limbs go numb.
I think I need to really be creative to figure out what you're thinking of.
But let's say like if you lose feeling to like your leg, for example, from like you have a nerve injury or something, so you're losing proprioception in the leg area is what's happening. And so having proprioception comes from just people being like stuck in their heads and just not paying attention, not having a healthy relationship with their body. But also people can just sometimes have injuries, or they can have ailments, or they can just have
they could have had like whiplash and trauma, so then the nervous system doesn't want to go to that area.
Exactly right. There's a lot of shut off that goes there. But in commonly in our space, people at the gym, they will say, I can't feel my glutes. And that's a sign of poor proprioception. And if you can't feel your glutes very well, for example, then it means that you probably can't feel all the other muscles that are next to the glutes. Also, you can't even feel that region. So it's not just the glutes, it's the whole region. But then if you then don't have control over that whole region, then that tends to lock up, which is really the hips. So the hips tend to lock up, and if the hips are locking up, then the rest of the body is going to seize up as well, because it can't work with gravity and it can't work with movement very well because there's this big locked up area, and so things just aren't moving as well.
It's like kinetic energy moving through.
It just doesn't.
It's trying to shoot through, but it hits something and blocks out, and then it scatters and goes haywire.
Right. And so there's a big ripple effect. There's a big ripple effect of no ripples. That's basically what happens. Is the body will seize up, and then the awareness goes down. And so we're really talking about making sure that you are coordinated through proprioception. And so proprioception is the self-awareness, and so that's more closer to the passive side of things, whereas coordination is more of the active side of things, where coordination is being able to deliberately not only feel the muscles but then use them. Does that make sense? So coordination is a reflection of someone who might be balanced or athletic, or they never fall over, or they're really good at catching things, or they're really good at throwing things. We know those people, and we might often describe them as natural athletes, but really we're describing them as coordinated people, which many natural athletes are, but it doesn't mean that you can't be coordinated. Everyone has the ability to be coordinated. Everyone has the ability to increase their proprioception. Everyone has a level of proprioception. There's no such thing as I can't feel my glutes. It's more of I'm not really sure what I'm feeling right now, and I don't know how to change those feelings. And it's a skill of improving your awareness, which improves your coordination, which then improves your strength and your stability, and then your force output further down the line. So that's what we're talking about with proprioception and coordination. Posture is a really simple one. Why is posture so important, Nav?
I think the thing that really comes to mind, which is why I'm so passionate about it, and so many people are like, oh, it's not that important, but I think of it as like a structure, a building, right? Yeah. And you'll have a beam, and we know through physics itself. I don't know why some people think that us being a human body, we don't apply to the same physics of everything else. But if you have a structure that's upright, if it finds the perfect upright position, then it's going to be strong and sturdy and safe. But if that beam starts to bend in any direction, slowly over time, it's going to start to snap. It's going to start to break. It's going to get weaker and weaker. And the same thing with our body. Like every human body is unique, but there also is a balance to each human body from what I believe and what we've seen anyway. And if we could find that individual balance, then we could find complete rest. We could find complete recovery and relaxation from that point.
Yes.
And then from there, like we're talking about kinetic energy, we could then create force output by moving through that. So it's like learning how to first stand, sit even, and then walk, run, throw, and then progress outwardly. And that's what posture is for me anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the words that jumped out with me, you dropped the word ease in there. And that's something that I learned in my I picked up from, I did a 3-day anatomy workshop as well recently, just before you went on your NLP workshop. And one of the key things that they were talking about is easeful movement. And I really like that. That's part of their goal of working with the mobility in the body, is to move with ease. And they, even when the lecturer, when she mentioned the word ease, she would even emphasize the tonality of which she said it would easeful. She would. No, I'm not yelling. I was going to yell and like, easeful. Easeful. Very easeful. And it's true. Like you're wanting to move with ease, and that the foundation of those movements come from good posture, because then your starting position is in a good neutral state, rather than you're trying to crank yourself into one position or one or the other. And so posture is fundamental. And as we've talked about in previous episodes when we discussed posture, the foundational thing to getting your posture improved is to build awareness first. You can't correct your posture if you don't know what needs correcting. So building awareness is really important, and that's both around both your seated postures and also your standing postures. So working on both your standing postures, your seated postures, and your overall awareness allows you to improve your relationship with tension and gravity, which is the two real main forces that act on your posture. Movement and strength, these are the two last things we want to talk about that's coming under the umbrella of functional mobility, and that is just movement and strength. One's movement. Do you want to talk to me about strength and why having good mobility around your strength and strength training is important?
Yeah, so for me, it's like mobility within strength training is, let's say if you want to do a deep squat, because it's a basic movement, right?
Yeah.
You need to have the strength within the muscles that pull you down into that position.
Yes.
And then you also need the freedom with mobility, flexibility to get down there. But the issue is if we have too much passive range of motion, then we can flaccidly fall into a position, and that could cause injury.
Yes.
Because now we're hypermobile, and it's pretty common for women especially. They've done a lot of yoga or stretching. They just enjoy stretching, but they lack the stability or the strength within that mobility, and then they could fall into a position because they have the ability to passively, but because they lack the active strength to do so, they could pull muscles, they could injure themselves and hurt themselves. So that's why movement, strength, mobility all work hand in hand with one another.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, that's really good, Nav. I like that a lot. There was something I wanted to throw in to do with strength training as well. Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on what you're talking about, like pulling yourself into position. And that was, I had one of the older males in the gym. I did a session with him yesterday because he was experiencing some pain, some like kind of adductor pain when he was squatting. And he was wonky, so there was a few things that we were moving around. But one of the key things that really helped him alleviate that pain was that his adductor was getting overloaded because he was just dropping into the squat. Yeah. He was just letting gravity and the barbell on his back just push him down into the ground, where I said, no, it's not actually that. You actually need to use your glutes to pull your knees wider, to move your knees out the way. But at the same time, you need to twist your feet ever so slightly to lift those arches up and create that torque through the knees, torque, T-O-R-Q-U-E. And so I was giving him these cues, and he was like, oh, fuck. I was like, turns out of me squatting wrong this whole time. Yeah. He was only like generating force on the upward portion of the movement, but now he's controlling and intentionally pulling himself down. He's feeling all sorts of things he's never felt before, and that alone improved his proprioception as well, because like, fuck, I didn't realize that. So that's what I wanted to elaborate on. And moving forward, for talking about how movement and kinetic energy applies to functional mobility, we are talking more about kinetic energy and energy transfer. So we get into the physics realm, but we're talking more about athletes such as gymnasts or track and field athletes, or just general physical jobs where people might be doing some laboring, such as like sledgehammering or cutting things with like manual labor. So if we use the example of a javelin thrower, if a javelin thrower were to just like stand with their back up against the wall and then just kind of like throw their arm forward, they're going to generate a small amount of force to propel that javelin forward.
Yeah.
Let's have a quick break. Our camera just froze for a moment, so we're going to have another quick break. I knew it was coming up close. I'm going to have we do this every single episode. You're not having a break, listeners. We're going to be having a break. Well, like 20 seconds to reset the cameras. Mystery sound number 1. We're going to go from the bottom up this time, I've decided. So we're going to go bottom right. All right, this ain't so bad. This is good music. We're going on a break, everybody. We're going to be resetting the cameras and then coming right back. And then we're back. Woo! All right, so going back to our little javelin thing. If a person's throwing a javelin, they would just having a straight back up against a wall and then just kind of lobbing their arm forward. They'll throw the javelin, produce a small amount of force. If that person then doesn't have their back up against the wall, and if you ever remember how you were taught as a child, point, aim, and throw, and so this time they're putting their opposite arm really far in front of them, and then behind them, that hand that has the javelin, that's going to go really far backwards, so that you can see they're really reaching their arms further back, and then using this what we call contralateral drive, that person is going to use kind of that rotation through their shoulders, and then throw this javelin. That's going to give them even more power production. And then when you add that person's ability to run and somewhat jump before they throw, it's the addition of the legs plus the hips plus the rotation through the torso working together to help produce all this extra force within the body, which allows the person to propel the javelin to go really, really, really far. To apparently, one guy broke the world record twice and speared 2 judges twice. Apparently it happened. Yeah, wow. JR was telling me the other day.
That's crazy.
I don't know when, but apparently, and it was because they were like, oh, we're just going to stand behind the world record line. Yeah. And then this guy's obviously beaten the world record.
Oh, they deserve it then. If they don't believe that any of these people could beat the world record, then that guy's an arsehole.
Yeah, they're all naysayers. That's why they're judges.
Naysayers deserve it.
That's why they're the judge. They're not the athlete. So, yeah, apparently that's also a thing. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about using kinetic energy, the force transfer. If anyone knows Newton's, I think it's third law or second law, every force has an equal and opposite reaction. And so when we're trying to produce force, we're using our body to throw force into the ground, and it's the reactive force from the ground that goes back into the body, and that will then travel through the body into the javelin, for example, or into the guy's boxing glove to have a really deliberate punch. But without good movement and easeful movement, the body doesn't articulate and carry that momentum that's coming from the ground and generate it into the ball or the javelin or the boxing glove, whatever they're trying to work towards. So functional mobility, in summary, we are talking about passive mobility versus active. We're thinking about the control. We're discussing proprioception and coordination. We're talking about posture, movement, strength, and kinetic energy. That is functional mobility. So let's talk about some of the common issues that people have with mobility. The most common one that I personally see, which I think Nav also gets as well, is back pain. Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about back pain, Nav.
Super common.
It is, yeah.
Extremely common.
Very common.
It's also like our torso is also our center of gravity. So our limbs come out of our torso. So it's extremely paramount, which is also why we have so many issues that stem from the spinal position or the back. It's pretty common to have kyphosis, like the back rounding over, or lordosis, the lower back arching, the bum coming up towards the ceiling, or both together. And then you get the extremity of scoliosis, which is where the spine will then curve side to side laterally.
Yes.
And all of that can be, in most cases, is influenced by tissue and muscle and what have you. And so if our mobility or structure is supporting kyphosis, lordosis, scoliosis, if we were to shift that structure, then we can work through a lot of back pain.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that is very interesting about back pain is that many clients that have weight issues struggle with back pain a lot. And for those people, although we're talking about mobility and we're talking about strength and all these things, if someone specifically is dealing with a large amount of weight on their body, I would be encouraging them to be focusing more on the nutrition side of things in your relationship with food, because that's going to be a key factor in getting the weight off. Because if someone has a lot of back pain, it's very hard for them to then do strength training to then build muscle to help them burn more calories as well. And so even though we also encourage people to use strength training as a form of helping burn calories to improve weight loss and fat loss and increase muscle mass, which is, we still do a part of that even with people that are more overweight. It's just one of those notes that I wanted to add in to make sure that you do have to be very gentle, a little bit more gentle with your body than most of us because of this extra weight. And that weight also inhibits the ability to move well. It's in a way a mobility issue, but it's more about there's just lots of fat that's inhibiting movement. So neck pain and headaches. This is a super common one as well. People talk about, it's a thing that I hear a lot, and people are like, oh, I get headaches all the time. I ask them a lot, do you get headaches? Because it helps me assess their neck mobility, shoulder mobility. But people are almost always, to me, they're going, oh, it's my job. Like I'm always like sitting on my job. I'm on my laptop a lot, on my computer a lot. I'm staring at a screen all day. And I go, yes, that's very, very, very true. But if you actually look at tribes from back in the day before before screens were invented, before we had computer screens, they still slouch in the same ways. And it's not the fact that, it is the fact that these things encourage us to slouch, but it's still the fact that we as humans are choosing to slouch. And if you look at the way the human body is designed, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the neck, the jugular, the lungs, the heart, the abdominals, the organs, the genitals, all of those parts of the body are in the front half. And so we're always naturally going to find ourselves curling forward. That's how we keep safer. That's how we keep warm. That's how we like to snuggle. That's how we often like to sleep. That is a natural curvature of the body. It's like rolling back into fetal position. And so when we look at helping improve back pain and neck pain and headaches for within people, a big part of that is just building that overall strength in the back half of the body to teach that person how to stand tall. And so I really wanted to emphasize, don't blame your desk job. It's the anatomy. It's our human anatomy that causes us to slouch forward, not necessarily the job. Yeah, it's always us. Anything you wanted to add on to neck pain and headaches?
Yeah, and you mentioned there's nothing wrong with being slouched or flexed. It's whether we have balance in the extended position, whether we build extension, or whether we have movement or range of motion that contributes to a more balanced posture over just the desk job. Yes. If you have a desk job, then get in the gym more. You know what I mean? Like if your desk job is still causing so much pain, then clearly you haven't done enough work in your rest, recovery, strength, mobility, nutrition, sleep, like something.
Yes.
But so you might as well explore it. Otherwise, just accept your pain.
Just give up and stay in pain.
Yeah. That's up to you. No judgment.
Or you can listen to the first 5 episodes on the Strength and Motion Show. Yeah. The next big challenge is difficulty building muscle, and this goes a couple of ways. People say that muscles just don't grow. I just can't grow my quads, or I can't grow my glutes or whatever. A big part of that is what we talked about proprioception before, is if people don't even have the sensory awareness to contract these muscles, that when you put a barbell on your back or you start doing certain weights, like those muscles aren't working. It's other muscles that are contracting on behalf of the glutes, for example, that they're going to start getting stronger instead. And they're often like back muscles or like calf muscles or hip flexors that we want them to get stronger but not tighter, and then it gets in the way. And the other thing about difficulty building muscle is that, for example, let's say a squat again is a simple one, that if someone doesn't have really good ankle mobility, they're not even squatting properly because they can't get into that position of a deep squat properly, which means they're not able to then load certain muscles as well. So if you don't have good mobility, perform an exercise, then you're not going to get the right benefits from that exercise because you're doing it wrong. And that's very inclusive of your mobility issues and your coordination and your sensory awareness issues. So some common examples of people having what we call compensations that they don't even know about it. So pecs versus internal rotators. So the pec muscles, they pull the chest forward and they kind of roll us in. And because the pecs are so tight, the other like rotator cuff muscles around the shoulders, they can get really sore or weak because the pec is actually stealing those rolls. Another one is abs versus hip flexors. So people try and train core all the time because they want a flat belly or a six pack, and they're doing lots and lots of leg raises, but a leg raise is actually working the hip flexors. And if you don't know anatomy very well, you don't have to, but just understand that a lot of ab movements train more than just the abs. And that poses, when doing consistently, when you're really chasing those six-pack gains, as I did, your postural problems can emerge like 6 to 12 months down the line, which is exactly what I had from just trying to really build that rock-hard six-pack so I could feel good about myself. No, I kind of did on the outside, not on the inside. And there's a whole list of ones that go into it as well that maybe we can talk about that later. No, that's actually it. Difficulty getting into certain positions and can't load correctly. So difficulty building muscle is a very common issue with mobility. Nav, do you want to talk about resistance to finding enjoyment within training if their body is immobile?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned it when you mentioned about someone being overweight, so being uncomfortable within their body that they don't want to train, right? Because any movement or many movements are really uncomfortable to them, so they don't feel like there's any exciting portion of training. Exercise don't feel like they're working as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. So they're coming in, they feel like crap. They don't feel like they're contracting or feeling the area that they think they should be, and they most likely do need to. And then that can set up some sort of self-doubt, self-judgment. I get that with clients when they can't do a movement, and then they're like, well, I can't do this movement, and they start to really beat themselves up about that. And that really impacts their ability to find the enjoyment in the training. And so working on, so if you're that sort of individual and training hurts, it's really uncomfortable, you don't enjoy it, then take it easy. Maybe just do some basic active mobility drills to get yourself started, and then start moving into bigger movements.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a very, very good. I like that. I just wanted to add in a quote that I heard from Gary Vee actually in his marketing book, and it reminds me of what you just shared there. Is he was talking about marketing, but he goes, it's like buying a bicycle and then riding it with your hands and then saying you hate riding. And so he just talks about being patient with things and making sure that you're doing things correctly before you cast a judgment onto it. And his was obviously like, people don't want to do market. They don't want to market their business. They don't want to put themselves out there. And people would like fail on one social media post and be like, I don't like doing social media. And it's like, actually, you haven't touched it. So same thing with getting into training is also just remember to be patient with yourself and allow yourself to make mistakes, because there will be an element of some of these problems that we're talking about. They emerge for most of us, and patience will really help you get through it. There's another one that is very common for big mobility issues, and this is relevant to some of the people that were in our not our workshop this morning, our mini retreat this morning when we did the breath work, and they talked about how they're like, wow, it turns out I breathe so much better. I didn't know I could breathe into my belly. And unfortunately for that person, they're like over the age of 50, which means they've just spent 50 years of their life like having that lockdown rib cage as well, which is
it's crazy.
It's fascinating. And we're all going to have a thing that we're going to reach our 60s and be like, I've lived my whole life not realizing this one thing. So
infinite amount of things.
Infinite amount of things. So but what I'm getting at is having a difficulty de-stressing, unwinding, or sleeping. So this is a big problem that many people face, but no one talks about it, which is why we're raising it, is that when people don't have good proprioception, they don't have good awareness, they don't have good coordination, good stability, the body is stiffer and the body doesn't feel as nice as other people's bodies that are healthy and mobile all the time. And then what happens is, because the body feels so uncomfortable, then it's stuck in that space. And if the person doesn't have the awareness or the understanding on how to work with de-stressing themselves, they might find themselves not being able to sleep, or they sit down, they can't relax or whatever, and then they have to use things like their sugar or the things like their Netflix or the alcohol or whatever it is that they feel they need to then help them alleviate that tension and relax. And ultimately, if you want to be functionally mobile, you need to learn how to turn those switches off yourself. Another one as a runner as well, shin splints, weak ankles, sore knees and hips. They come up a lot for me as I do run coaching as well. And so people don't have good movement patterns and functionally immobile. And therefore, after a couple of runs, they're like, my fucking shins are killing me, my feet are killing me. And
lower back, my
lower
hips
backs, And so a lot of, I don't get them to run further, I get them to run better. And so a lot of analysis going on runs with them, filming them and improving that as well. And the last one, Nav.
The difficult feeling the body, describing feelings.
Yes.
Pretty much what I covered a little bit over earlier. But it's just the difficulty of feeling certain muscles during training, and then also articulating your feelings. So not knowing what you're experiencing and how to share that with someone else that might be trying to support you or help you as well.
Yes.
Which is why I think it's very beneficial to work with someone that does know what you're experiencing, because then they might be able to put words or cues or things to what you're experiencing, which will help you gain greater self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's what's so good about mobility as well. It allows you to gain more self-awareness and understanding of your own feelings and your physiological feelings and how to control that, because without tension, physical tension could really cause a lot of stress in our lives.
Definitely. You sparked another thought as well, talking about how that level of confidence as well. And really these problems we talked about, people having back pain, neck pain, difficulty building muscle, resistance to finding enjoyment when they're training, whether they can't de-stress, unwind or sleep, they all lead to a lack of confidence, whether it's a lack of confidence, of self-confidence, where they don't feel able enough and just like, I'm not as fit and strong as everyone else, or I'm not as mobile as everyone else, or they just don't feel confident in their body. It's like, I'm not going to get on that treadmill because I think I'll fall over, or I don't want to try that exercise because I'll think I don't
want to sneeze, I'm going to blow my back out.
People are scared of these things, and they don't want, they're genuinely terrified of hurting themselves. And coming back from injuries, I've felt those feelings as well, and they suck. But what I wanted to add in is that the actual practice of awareness and practice of improving mobility and practice of improving proprioception, that allows you to find that that peace and that calm within those challenges. And also the physical act of training inside the gym, doing mobility, allows you just to spend more time in the gym and not failing, really, because when you're doing a lot more mobility work, it's very easy just to you can just chill in a corner and chill to your own space and mind your own business. But for a lot of people, being in the gym itself, regardless of what they're doing, being in the gym itself is quite intimidating. And so I always encourage people that use mobility as a hack to get into the gym, even if it's 20 minutes, just do some movement. And then in that time, you can start to observe other people in the gym and learn through osmosis and observation from other people that are experienced. And I found that was very helpful in my initial journey, is just spending more time in the gym, not necessarily training, but still doing mobility and doing easy stuff, so that I was just familiarizing myself with my surroundings, my environment, and that really helped build my confidence a lot. So now we've just discussed all these different problems, but how do we fix them? How do we navigate? How do we, what do we do? And so I'll get you can start on the second topic, that one there. Can you see me highlighting that on your screen?
If you keep it there, I think.
I'll get you to do that one.
Okay.
And then I'll just touch base on this one.
Beautiful.
Look at us, smooth podcast hosts. Like, we're not reading off notes on our laptops at all. No, we can actually see it on the camera. We're very open about it. So, look, really, before we think about the technical side of training, if we're going to start working with these issues and improving our functional mobility, we really need to shift our focus. We really need to look at things differently. And what I mean by that is we need to change the way we look at the human body. And it's very easy to look at the body like it's a vehicle and like it's a car that just sits in the garage, because there's a lot of things that are similar. The car needs to drive around. You've got to fuel the car. You've got to service it. Very similar to the body. You've got to feed it. You've got to nourish it. And there's a lot of mechanical overlap. So they're very good at using the body, the car, as an analogy for the human body. And we do that a lot when we're looking at anatomy. However, the thing that separates the human body and a vehicle is the fact that the human body is living. It is an organism. And a lot of what we do in the fitness industry and in the medical world is we discuss the body like it's a vehicle. And you would have even heard me talk about the body like it's a vehicle in the podcast, but you have to treat it like it's a living thing. And living things, actually, they adapt, they change, they contract, they relax, and that can happen in a split moment as well. And so you have to understand that your body as a living creature is constantly reacting to its surroundings. It's reacting to lights that are brighter or darker. The body's reacting to sounds that are loud. It's reacting to temperature changes. It's constantly adjusting itself. And therefore, the body is also constantly adjusting itself and adapting to a new job where you find yourself sitting more, or a new career where you find yourself driving around more. The body is constantly adapting, which means you have to remind yourself that you have to keep moving. So it's adapting to be better at moving, because the more you be still, the body adapts to being better at being still. And that aids the absence of functional mobility. And so really think about A sedentary body will adapt to become more sedentary. A mobile body will adapt to become more mobile. And so when you change the way you look at the body, it helps you understand that you really have to nurture it and you really have to work with it, and remind yourself that you're trying to put it in an environment that's going to allow it to feel calm and healthy and safe and be mobile. What's next?
Building awareness. So awareness is the key. It is the input. So without the right input, a muscle will not properly relax or contract. So for me, what that means is practicing the mindfulness and self-awareness surrounding your body to then be able to choose the input into your nervous system to tell it what to do.
Yes.
And so when we're doing a squat, we're not just like the squat is a pattern of movements, and it also has to be objectified to you as well. So how does your body move within a squat? How to get your body to achieve the result of a squat that you're trying to achieve, but without having the awareness of how to do that and your body's current capacity, and then how to move your capacity and progress it upwards. Without any of that awareness, you can't do that. And a lot of that does come from gaining self-awareness, mindfulness, and just slowing down. And it's like crawl before you stand, before you walk, before you run. We need that essence of that process within everything that we do in most cases. We want to really make sure that we're capturing the process, gain awareness, and then we're holding that, create a system surrounding it, and then our body system will unconsciously be able to move in manners that will be beneficial to us instead of dysfunctional ways that might actually injure us or hurt us or all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah, beautiful. Awareness is the next step. From there, you need to prioritize optimizing for movement over the mirror. So this is what we were touching base on at the beginning of the podcast of why we believe mobility is just not as popular, and still to this day, aesthetics is the most popular style of training out there. It is changing, but it's still the most popular, and it's usually the goal that we tend to navigate towards first. We always want to we see what we see in the mirror, and we tend to not like it. It was a big motivator for both Nav and myself when we started our journeys, as it is a big motivator for most people that join our gym as well. And when you train for example, I want a big booty or I want a big chest, you're just training to get the chest really big, or you're just training to get your butt really big. But the butt doesn't just look big, and that's not its only role. And the chest's only role isn't to look big. The chest role, the pec's role is also to pull on the humerus and create internal rotation of the humerus. It's also to decelerate abduction of the humerus. You don't even have to know what that means, but you have to understand that the muscle is involved in coordination of producing force, absorbing force, changing direction of force, and holding things inside sockets so the skeletal system doesn't fall apart. There's other roles that the body has, and every muscle has a multitude of roles. And so you have to really consider that there's more than just the aesthetic that we're working towards, which also means that although we may find it overwhelming, as like, does this mean I have to remember all the muscles, Josh? The answer is no. You don't have to remember the muscles. What we're teaching now at SMA is that you're more so optimizing your body for a certain movement. So instead of trying to train the glute med for abduction, deceleration of adduction, or whatever we're talking about, which is quite complicated, train for hip stability. Because that's a really simple thing. Train to be able to do well on long lunges where you're with or without a load. Or really simply, train for dynamic movement patterns and to improve energy transfer. So you're improving the way you run. You're improving the way you jump. You're improving the way you throw, the way you skip, the way you do some lateral bounding, which is big side steps left and right. And so if you wanted a big chest, by all means, get a big chest. But make sure you also improve the body for something like throwing, because throwing includes the pec muscles to articulate the shoulder and the arm to produce that force. So then you're meeting the functional need of the muscle as well as your aesthetic need as well. And so that's a really good way to prioritize movement over your mirror stuff. And you can fit them both into a single training session. I'm literally doing that now in my own programming, is you can fit them in both, and you just have to find your most optimal balance to suit your goals and your lifestyles and your body. What's next, Nav?
Treat all joints like they're royalty. So optimize them for all angles, in that our joints have all sorts of different range of motions, different rotations, moving across the body, away from the body, up high, up low, and optimize them for all angles, especially in what you're trying to achieve or what you're trying to overcome. Like if you have a shoulder injury and it's driving into the capsule, which is creating bursitis, then move that joint into the opposite direction, externally rotate, retract, and get that shoulder some space. Give it some rest to recover and create some balance. And then eventually you'll be able to go back into that shoulder. And you'll be able to do more load on that, maybe even better than ever before. But it's important to treat the joints like they're royalty and look after them. And create range and then slowly load it.
Yep, definitely. That's a really good one. I'm a big fan. That's if anyone has heard me mention things like FRC, functional range conditioning, before in previous podcasts. Functional range conditioning, that style of training is a very that's where this comment comes from. Treating joints like they're royalty. Functional range conditioning is a training protocol that focuses on joints' ability to move. It's less about how big is your bench press. It's more about how well can you internally rotate your arm versus how well can you externally rotate your arm. And that applies for every single joint. So I'm a big fan of that. The next one is to assess or audit the body daily. Really, this is just another version of proprioception, but this is the habit of proprioception. So if you think if you ever watch your dog or someone's dog, dogs always, after laying down or sitting down for a while, they always stretch, like instantly. Cats are the same. All of our pets, they're the easiest ones to observe because they're the ones that are usually following us around. But you'll notice that all animals, whenever they've been sitting down or standing or just been static for a short period of time, could be 5 minutes, could be 5 hours, when they get up, they'll either shake or they'll fluff themselves or they'll move and go for a big stretch or a yawn. And that's their body's innate ability or innate desire to just get rid of that tension that's just accumulated from them just being sitting there and being static. But we tend to stand up after a while and we're already thinking about the next thing or thinking about something else, which means we're not assessing our body in that moment. And so what I'm asking you to do is, on a regular basis, as much as I do this thing where I like check my phone, keys and wallet. So if I stand up, I'm like, have I got my phone with me? Have I got my keys with me? Have I got my drink bottle? Like that kind of stuff. As often as I check that is how often I remind myself to check my breath and check my body tension. And it's a regular thing. It's not, at 5 p.m. I'm going to assess my body. It's developing the habit that you always just like kind of double checking what feels tight and what doesn't. And last but not least, Nav,
building around the main line. So this is a little bit more in depth.
Yes.
But I would recommend looking at maybe just the myofascial lines.
Yes.
So if you're going to do some research, Google, search myofascial lines. We'll actually share some resources later so you could actually study and look into that. But these are different multiple lines that we hold within our body, sequence of lines that allow us to either like flex forward and touch our toes or reach overhead and bend our back, extend our back, move laterally, like if we're trying to touch the side of our foot as we lean over or the side of the hip. And then also like the functional lines when we throw, like contralateral from one pec to the opposite inner thigh. And then the same applies on the back end, like one glute to the opposite top corner shoulder blade. And look, if you Google the myofascial lines, you'll see that. And then that will give you an understanding of, the body moves in more ways than just up and down. You know, absolutely. And it's really important knowledge to have and understanding that these are like the kinetic chains. These are kinetic lines that our body moves into, and understanding those could be really beneficial. Yeah, definitely. And just to touch on that is that many of you listeners will have no fucking idea what a myofascial line is. It's spelled MYOFASS. Sorry, I fucked that. Sorry. MYOFASCIAL, the 12 myofascial lines. You don't have to understand the anatomy behind them, but even if you just look at them, you'll understand that there are lines that run in the body. And what we talk about, lines are lines of muscles. So muscles aren't individual. They actually link together, and there's different little train tracks that links all these lines. So they kind of call these lines like the London subway, and then the muscle itself is a train stop.
And so that's where what we talk about kinetic energy transferring through the body and understanding that. But to keep it simple for our listeners, we just talk about the compass analogy is that these myofascial lines help you move forward. They help you move backwards. They help you move left and right, and they help you move diagonally and rotate. So that's what you're trying to optimize yourself for is forward, back, up, down, left and right, diagonally and rotation. And that incorporates those 12 myofascial lines and everything else we've talked about. We're going to do a quick little camera reset, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Ooh, yeah. Not bad. I think this was in last time as well, wasn't it?
Can't remember.
Right, we're back. And we're back with mystery sound number 3. Oh, hold on. Oh, fuck.
Oh, you're just clicking them all. Mystery, no.
We've heard this one before. I don't like that one. Fuck that line.
Actually, we should probably be careful as well. Didn't one of our podcasts get flagged because of these songs, these tunes? We probably get in trouble now.
So our last episode got taken down because we were pressing buttons and we've used a sound that
it's not royalty free, like it got flagged.
Yeah, it got flagged, it got taken down, so we had to we actually changed our hosting platform as well. Yeah. We moved off Buzzsprout, by the way. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see,
Yeah, I don't know what we're using now, but anyway. So turns out someone's listening to the podcast. Otherwise it wouldn't have got taken down. All right. So let's talk about mystery items. It's mystery item time. Woo! Do we have any sound effects?
Careful.
This a banger though.
Maybe imagine we get flagged for that.
Hey, you'll see it. This a banger though.
It's a banger though. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to show me your banger?
Yeah,
your banger
yeah.
All right. Navar, mystery item. What has he got?
I have the Anatomy Trains book. Woo! Although we are recommending this in the resources, but I won't lie, I forgot what mystery items I've used. And so
you haven't used that book.
I definitely haven't used this one, but I had other ideas. And then I'm like, have I used them already? So I actually had to create a list of mystery items. So I kind of grabbed this last minute. So I had this book.
You were going to use a ball or a band, weren't you? And
I was going to use Theracane. Have I used a Theracane yet?
I actually don't think you've used a Theracane.
Damn it.
Yet.
All right, don't listen, guys. I'll bring that later.
Don't trust my memory. I remember people's names, but anyway.
Yeah, I remember items. So I brought the Anatomy Trains book. However, it is quite a big book.
Yes.
So I probably actually wouldn't recommend that to the audience too much. I recommend it as a book if you really, really want to deep dive into it.
If you're a coach,
If you're a coach, 100%, it's very beneficial. But I guess I want to use it as representation of knowledge. My gift today, my mystery item is knowledge itself.
Yeah.
And knowledge is helpful. Explore. Well, you're listening to this podcast, so that in itself is knowledge. And so well done to you for taking the time to build your knowledge.
Yeah.
So if you want to take a next step, maybe go in a book like this or Supple Leopard. I actually think Supple Leopard is probably quite a good applicable book for everyday people.
I would actually.
It's just like
Leopard of Anatomy Trains. Yeah.
Yeah. You could it shows you muscles, anatomy, and if you want to improve a certain movement, a certain exercise, you could then jump into the book, look over it, and it'll give you tips on how to do mobility drills, foam rolling drills that will help you open up and achieve that result.
Yeah. I'm going to say if you're training 3 days a week or more, then you're ready for the Supple Leopard.
It's a good book.
Yeah. Supple Leopard's a great book. And also for the record, we just talked about the 12 myofascial lines. They are what the Anatomy Trains book talks about. And then although we're not being like, don't get this book, the images that are in this book, if you see them on Google, all you need is just the Google image. I show them to my clients that are at base level knowledge, and that helps them a lot. All you got to do is see it. Once you see it, you're like, oh, I get it now. Makes sense. So that's the Anatomy Trains. Cool.
Awesome. What is yours, Josh?
Mystery item. Did you see what I brought in? You saw me sneaking in?
Nah.
You saw me sneaking.
I did, but I'm getting better at not, because you know me, I'm hard to surprise because I instantly go into this like, I must know, and I can figure it out. So actually, I'm trying to surrender.
Do you want to guess?
Nah.
You got 3 seconds to guess. 3, 2,
I don't want
to. Mine's a 2-part.
Yeah.
You know what this is?
Yeah, it's a knife. It's a butter knife.
I bought a knife.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Funny enough, this was one of my other things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Well, that'll be the fun of it if we both brought the same thing.
Yeah, and another toy. I was going to bring a Theracane and coconut. Literally what I was going to do.
So, and I actually brought a jar of coconut oil, and it's even got a piece of sticky tape on it that says massage. So, believe it or not, with this jar of coconut oil and massage that says massage on it with sticky tape and this butter knife, people have paid me money, real money, to work on their bodies using this. So, this is definitely the backyard version of what this is, but this is a tool combination. Coconut oil is just really good for the skin, but it's a good lubricant, which is a lotion that people would use for massage or body work. And the butter knife is using the back of a butter knife is similar to the back of either a credit card or a fingernail. So actually, one of our physios, she has actually studied the anatomy train's work, and she learnt some fascial release techniques. And basically, she uses her uses her thumbs and nails to kind of like work on. It's really light. It's not really massage. It's more just like working on the tension that the skin holds. It's not exactly the skin, but just think of it as the skin. And basically, I started doing it on myself, and it's really game changer. So, for those of you listening, you won't be able to see me do this, but imagine it looks like I'm shaving with a cutthroat razor on my neck. And so for those of you that are watching, if I was at home by myself, I would just get a bit of coconut oil. And if I wanted to release a bit of neck tension, I could just rub some coconut oil into my neck, and I'll use the back end of the butter knife just to gently scrape and just glide it down. And you pretty much just like, I don't know what, like it's light and it's gentle, but all you're trying to do is just disrupt some of the staticness that's in the skin, which is technically there's another layer underneath the skin. And so if you just imagine that if you took the whole skin layer off the human body, there's literally another layer directly underneath it, and it's kind of like a wetsuit. Imagine you're just wearing a really, really thin wetsuit, but that really, really thin wetsuit has the ability to hold a lot of tension. And so when you just gently scrape that wetsuit, it actually creates a bit of space and a bit of freedom between the layers, and it makes the body function nice and well. So that's the little butter knife technique. If anyone's been to our workshops, you can see that technique in action. And that's my mystery item, a butter knife and coconut oil. You can actually just get these blades off like Amazon and Google, but just use a butter knife. Who cares? $2 from IKEA. Recommended resources for the listeners.
Yeah. So first one, breathing drills, Wim Hof breathing. You could just search Wim Hof breathing on YouTube. There's slow and fast ones, and then the SMA app as well, our own app, and we have breathing drills and mobility drills in that as well that people could just follow.
Yeah, beautiful. Look at some movement specialists if you love scrolling Instagram. You've got Ido Portal and Roy Gold, Roye. They are in Israel, I think.
Yeah,
Israel.
I think you are right.
Ido Portal, not as famous, but used to be really, really popular back in the day. He's a movement guy. He just moves really, really well, and the things that he teaches are really fantastic as well. And they're really they're beautiful to watch these guys move.
Yeah.
And I wrote the spinal flow guy, but I can't fucking remember.
John Ewan?
It's literally him.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah.
Oh, it's John Ewan.
You got me onto him as well. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know his Instagram name, but his name's John Ewan, and he is just like he's the man that I never want. I don't have a wife, but I don't want him to. I don't want my wife to meet him because he'll steal all our women. He's just I've never seen a man move so well. So that's him. And then we've got, obviously we talked about Kelly Starrett, The Supple Leopard. That's the book that we mentioned.
Yeah.
We've got Thomas Myers, which is the anatomy train's work.
Yeah.
We've got Karin Gertner. She runs Art in Motion, who are actually an affiliate company with anatomy trains that also teach fascial work as well. And Art in Motion is actually who I'm doing my mentorship with. My mentor emailed me during this podcast, actually, because we got our first Zoom call this Thursday. And then Nav's actually worked with Functional Patterns with Naudi Aguilar. You've worked with the Perth branch of Functional Patterns.
Yeah, with Daryl from here in Perth.
Daryl, that's it.
Highly rate them.
And then we've got David Weck, and he's the Weck method. He's very big on rotational work, and they all speak. Some of them between them, they do argue a little bit between each other, but let's pretend that we're all friends.
Creative minds can wonder and argue.
Yes, but they're all working towards the same thing: is a human race that moves better, and they're just trying to get what they believe is the most important thing forward. But they're all talking the right stuff in terms of anatomy and expanding this general one-dimensional bodybuilding style training that we have. So check it out. And fun fact about David Weck, he was the founder of the Bosu Ball in 1999.
I did know that.
I only found that out about I don't know, a week or two ago.
Oh,
So.
I've known that for a little while, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
that's why it's crazy.
Yeah, he made bulk money off it, eh?
Yeah, he did.
He made a lot of
I
money.
think he still makes bulk money from it.
I believe he does.
But I think he's crazy because everyone abuses him. So
yeah.
now I'm like, maybe I do like the Bosu Bowl. Anyway, thanks very much for listening, guys. Nav, hit us with our final mystery sound.
Let's do. Although,
Yeah.
I don't want to get us in trouble though.
Oh no, I hit that one first. And that one. Go one of those three.
I think you already hit that one.
Ayo, see it.
Okay,
we
it's one of them
already
two.
did
Dow.
We'll do this.
Oh, this was from the last one as well. This has got a good little beat drop. We're gonna wait for the beat.
Honestly, this is probably the one that's going to kick us out.
Yeah. All right, see everyone. Thanks for listening. See you in the
Goodbye.
next episode.
Goodbye.